Hi, hello, welcome to my channel. This is Unkempt Snuggle Pepper, and today I have a speed paint which is putting in the main sketches for my webcomic Fortune's Fancy. When I go to make my webcomic, I open up usually 4 pages depending on how much material I want to cover, and I go through and add all the word bubbles, making some adjustments, and then I go through all, in this case, 5 pages and do all of the sketching. After I've put in all of the sketches, I then go through and do all of the line art, all of the colors, all of the backgrounds, and then all of the effects and shading. So this video is part 1 of working on my webcomic because I had like 5 hours of footage and I didn't know if I could stay on topic for a 40-minute video, which is what I got it down to, so I'm splitting it into 2 parts. Fortune's Fancy is my webcomic about a sad, gay wizard who becomes a little less sad, with the help of a handsome fortune teller and a ornery apprentice. So this is chapter 9, in which Mira is clever, and this is part 4, which will hopefully go up sometime next week. So far, we have Mira, who sought out Drexel, the sad gay wizard, in order to teach her how to use her magic, which she had far too much of and was manifesting as blue streaks on her skin. She knew to find Drexel by going to an asylum and speaking with Bastion, who is the villain, dun dun dun, and he told her about what happened which led Drexel to destroy most of a city. So when Mira meets Drexel for the first time, she divulges some of this information and asks him to take her as an apprentice, which he reluctantly, after some time, agrees to do. Meanwhile, they meet Archimedes, who is a traveling fortune teller. And in this chapter specifically, Mira had become rather bored with her study in magic, so Drexel made a bowl appear and then broke it, telling her to fix it, and Mira would much rather spend her time playing matchmaker between Archimedes and Drexel. Throughout the speed paint, you'll see me use a variety of methods in order to get their faces to be more square. I have the tendency that my characters lean to one side, and I don't see it until I reverse the canvas. Unfortunately, reversing the canvas too much means you no longer have that fresh view on it, and you may miss things like characters leaning from one side to another. Obviously, there's the fantastical element of Fortune's Fancy, that a lot of the plot is based on those sorts of things, but I also wanted to go into mental illness and mental health issues and really make some characters who come through those struggles. A major theme is that of found family, but even though Drexel has found people who love and care about him, he still struggles with a lot of mental illness symptoms. Mental health issues run in my family, as well as generational trauma, so creating Fortune's Fancy has been, in a way, me dealing with some of the things that have happened to me in my lifetime. Now, if you've seen the title to this video, which I imagine you have, it's not about me and my mental health story, or Drexel and his mental health story, but rather one of my brothers. I am the youngest of 6, and one of my brothers has bipolar 1 with psychotic features, which has been very apparent for quite a few years. Also, all 5 of my siblings are 15 to 23 years older than I am. So bipolar 1 requires a depressed episode and a manic episode. A depressed episode is defined by down mood, lack of interest in doing things, feeling hopeless, helpless, or worthless, thoughts of death, that sort of thing. Whereas a manic episode, a person may feel euphoric and have delusions of grandeur, increase in risk-taking behavior, decreased need for sleep, change in appetite, Now, with bipolar and depression, they both have the option in the DSM to have psychotic features, meaning that a person will hallucinate either auditory, visual, or sensation, and they will have significant delusions, which are things that can be easily misproven with fact. For my brother, this involves hearing the voice of God and having these intense religious delusions. I think he spends all day watching really out there pastors talk about how the country is going downhill. That sort of thing. And this is not exactly something that is new. My siblings being much older than me, I mostly heard stories about what they were doing or heard from my mom's phone calls when she would talk to them. And with my brother, he always seemed to be fighting with his wife, and he had these intense beliefs, and he had the idea that God was telling him to move from Texas all the way out to California. And for years, God is telling me to move to California. And after about 20 years of having this delusion, he did move to California, only to find out he hated California and he needed to move back to Texas. He also has some pretty weird beliefs. For example, our mom became sick, and I was in college and he was in Texas, and we're pretty far away from Texas. He messages me and says, "You need to go down and take care of Mom right now." And so I told him, "Mom doesn't need help." I asked her. She says she's doing fine. She just has a cold and I have class tomorrow. And he said, "Your class doesn't matter. You need to go down and take care of Mom." And to this day, even when our mom says she didn't need help, she didn't ask for help, she didn't want help, he still kind of puts that pressure on that I should somehow be taking care of our mom, who I am not speaking to, and that's a whole nother story. The other thing he likes to wave in my face is that I uninvited our mom to my wedding, which is not true. My mom was absolutely welcomed at my wedding. I said, "Don't start any drama the night before," and she decided not to attend. Again, somehow my brother thinks it is his God-given duty to punish me for uninviting our mom to my wedding, which he also didn't go to. None of my biological family went to my wedding, which is fine. Again, most of my siblings are much older than me, except for one brother who lives nearby. Most of them have not taken much of an interest into what I do or don't do. This was made extra clear to me as they were planning to come out and visit our mom and our brother out here in the Midwest. But anytime I added to the conversation by saying, "Hey, I would like to meet up with you," even though I'm not speaking to our mom right now, my schedule and my interests were very much so ignored. But I digress. Back to my brother, who has untreated bipolar 1 with psychotic features. Recently, I began to receive emails from him, as did everyone in the family, but they have long since blocked him. And these emails are with incredibly disorganized speech and covering kind of a strange array of topics. Now, I am fairly liberal and he is very strangely conservative and a Christian nationalist. There's not really a whole lot of agreement that's going to happen between us. And he has made that abundantly clear. He began sending emails, and I asked him politely to stop, which he of course did not. So I decided the only thing he could possibly hate more than the Seventh-day Adventists, which is what our mom and one of our sisters identify as within Christianity, the only thing he could possibly hate more is gay. And guess who has a webcomic about a sad gay little wizard? So I began to send him fan art. Well, that did not stop his emails. I didn't even get a whole lot of hate, just asking if I were now a lesbian. Interesting, but no. I will now read one of his emails. I picked one that didn't dive too much into politics and wasn't too outrageously long as many of them tend to be. So we have Ozzy, meaning Ozzy Osbourne, who calls himself the Prince of Darkness, released his 13th studio album on 9/9/22, called Patient Number 9. Back in 2018, 18 is 6 plus 6 plus 6, I picked up his son Jack at the Pearl and took him to the San Antonio airport. My exact mileage dropping him off was 666.667 miles. In both pictures, the light is only on me, not on Jack Osbourne's Ozzy's son. COVID-19 is a strong prelude to the coming of the Mark of the Beast. Ozzy's 13th album, Revelation 13, discusses how no man can buy or sell without taking the mark of the beast, a digital prerogative to reject him and be eternally damned. Either way, we're coming vastly to an end of the age and into the greatest tribulation, where men will literally cry over the rocks and fall on them so they can die. Ozzy formed a band called Black Sabbath in 1968. Another satanic inversion, because Satan has no Sabbath. God's Sabbath is not black, nor is ours. It is the direct reference to Satan himself. Black Sabbath as God of the world, operating in total darkness and deception. God is light. In him we see no darkness, no shadow, no variableness of turning. Satan's rebelled against God, and all he can do is murder, lie, and deceive. God bless. And if you're wondering, Jamie, did you leave like a couple paragraphs out from that? That's a pretty weird jump in logic to go from the number 666 to COVID-19. It's a big jump. No, I did not skip any paragraphs. That is word for word what was typed out. And if you're wondering about the picture, the light is coming from my brother's upper right-hand shoulder, shining down on him. And because my brother is blocking the light, then Jack Osbourne is in shadow. It's like an afternoon picture. And then there's one light ray coming down, when you catch the sun at just the right moment. And I think that's the light he's talking about, how it's like very easily explained by physics, which is the weird and wild thing about delusion, is that no matter what you tell someone who is experiencing a delusion, no matter how much logic you use, that delusion trumps everything. And I worked as a case manager for a community mental health place, and some of my clients would have schizophrenia, and it was always interesting how their delusions manifested. Some would think that they're going to be moving in 3 days, which never happened. Some are thinking that they have a large sum of money owed to them, which of course never happened. And it was, in a way, a little sad, because they believed this with their entire being. One client had the delusion that he was born in the 1800s, which is an interesting notion in itself. But he was so frustrated that when he would tell other people his birth date, no one believed him. How could you be born in the 1800s? You're obviously in your 20s or 30s. Well, would you be upset if someone told you your birthday was wrong? That's one of our most basic identifiers, is our birthday, our name, things like that. So being told that those things are wrong, that has to be pretty frustrating. So when it comes to my brother, who is experiencing these intense delusions, trying to reason with him doesn't work, which is why the entire family doesn't talk to him. And none of our other siblings talk to him. Our mom doesn't talk to him. His own daughter doesn't talk to him, because these delusions have taken over everything. And it's interesting that he doesn't realize that most of the emails he sends this to probably have either blocked him or send him to a folder right away. And in a way, I feel like it's sad. Not entirely pity, because there are many treatments for bipolar disorder. I take my meds, I get a good night's sleep at night, I go to therapy, and I try to be responsible for my negative actions. I know I act in inappropriate ways because of my mental illness, and for me, it's a reason why I do things, not necessarily an excuse. Remember, your feelings are always valid, but the actions that follow may not be justified. So part of the reason that I still have his emails pop up is, well, none of my other siblings, aside from one brother, really pay much attention to me. And I know it's kind of a messed up thing to say that the negative attention is better than no attention. Honestly, it almost seems like a test of acceptance, knowing that nothing I say or do or how perfectly I execute any sort of skills I learned in therapy is going to change that my brother is going to continue to send these emails. Out of frustration, I told him, well, you don't talk to any of the other siblings. They don't want anything to do with you. To which his excuse was, well, the oldest brother is agnostic, so no good conversations there. My oldest sister is Seventh-day Adventist, so that's off the table. He would be number 3, and then my brother under him, I'm not sure what reason he would have to justify my brother not speaking to my other brother. Golly. He didn't mention our other brother and sister, but he seemed very unaware that it was his behavior causing them to leave and not some defect in them. And it has to be frustrating. It has to be frustrating to believe these things with such conviction that you knowingly harass other people with them. And at the end of the day, those people don't even read that email. How much time did he spend crafting up those things? Only to have them left unread for eternity. How frustrating must it be to have relationships, one after another, slowly fall apart? That you, with some noble intent, are trying to save your family from eternal damnation, but as a result have just pushed everyone away? That has to be frustrating. And every so often he gets a glimmer of insight. This email reads, I'm sorry, Mom and everybody. Been a real jerk and a-hole to Mom and everybody. Very disgusted with myself for allowing anger, hatred, etc. Should have never have tried in living in California. Should have moved and helped Mom out since 2009. My own anger is rooted in rejection and just stupidity. I should have demanded more of myself and less of others and trusted God. He then goes on to talk about a lot of Bible verses and ramble. And then down at the end we have, because the law of God is a gift given and ministered by the Holy Spirit within us. As such, let us sow the Spirit and walk in the Spirit of God so that we can be spiritually minded. Now the law is a spiritual, not 10 commandments written on 2 tablets of stone. You're denying the grace, Mom and Lisa. You're denying the spiritual reality of sin and God's law, which is why you will both die in your sins. Explanation point. I don't know about you, but if I'm going to write a letter apologizing for being such an asshole, I at least want to get through that letter without then being a total asshole. I mean, that's how apologies work in my mind. Well, that concludes this episode of Draw With Me. Let me know if you liked it by hitting the like button, maybe subscribing. Down below you will find links to Fortune's Fancy, the webcomic.